Okay, well, thank you, Hayden. Aloha o ifit hop. Oh, we're recording now. Aloha o ifit hapi cruz koinoa no makahamayao nohoa mama laila aya au I ka papa umi, if that entire thing wasn't introduction enough. Aloha and Melina Mai to EAducation with Mana Wāhine. We are Ea Ka'aio Hawaii, a collection of opio from across the state dedicated to building resiliency through disseminating our understanding of Ea, resiliency, and how liberation can be manifested through Aina. We were woven together through the Youth Action Alliance Hawaii program, a project and product of a coalition between Seeds of Peace, Hawaii Kids Can, and Pacific Asian Affairs Council. We are so thankful for your leadership, Mana'o, and just, creating a space where us young minds can get together and plan stuff like this. So, biggest mahalo to all of you. I see Erica. Yes, there you are. Thank you, Erica. And I hate to be excluding anyone else who is in, but I cannot at this time see anyone else.
Mahalo Ifi, aloha o Alapakele koinoa, ayao I ka papa umi. Oh, I mixed it up, sorry, one more time. Ayao I ka papa umi kumakahi, hele ao I ke kula o Sacred Hearts Academy. If you can't tell, this was my second time reading that sentence, so I felt like we got kind of better. Before we begin, next slide, Anna, please. You're the bomb dig. Okay, before we begin, we would like to talk about some protocol. So if at any time you have any questions or you have like some really cool comments, please feel free to private chat me. I think my name is just Ella Pakele, and then I will direct your questions to our panelists. But we'll also have time at the end to have you guys speak up, kind of voice your questions to our panelists. This is just so we kind of get a roll count. For the time being, please keep your mics muted so that we allow our panelists the opportunity to be heard. And finally, we would love to see all of you, so please turn on your cameras if you are comfortable. I would also like to take the time right now to say that this session will be recorded and then posted to our website. So if you're not comfortable with that, totally okay. But if you want to share with family and friends after, totally encouraged. At the end of our session, we'll be taking a group picture, so make sure to bring your smiles.
Mahalo Ella for that. Aloha o Hayden konanui Tucker ko uinoa. Aya o I ka papa umi kumakahi. Hele o I ke kula o kamehameha. To start off, I want to make sure that all of your guys' Zoom features work, such as mics, chat, and all that. So I'll be launching a poll right now. And if you guys could all fill out the poll, we would like to see your mana'o about where you guys are tuning in from, as well as how did you hear about this session. This will help us to better understand how we can do more outreach for more sessions, and also see where our demographic of people are tuning in from. So if you guys could all fill out that poll, that would be greatly appreciated. Once we're all in, I'll close it. A few more. Perfect. We have all responses in. Mahalo nui.
Thank you, Hayden. So, aloha o anasu ko oinoa, noho ao I pulolo ayao I ka papa umi. Today, we are honored to be able to celebrate International Women's History Month, which happens in March, and we're fortunate enough to have created a panel of distinguished women leaders who are continuously perpetuating aloha aina in their various professions.
We are very much excited to introduce all of our wonderful panelists and, allow them to speak. But before we do, we want to give a little bit of background on them, and they can, continue this a little bit later. So first, we'd like to introduce Nanea Keli'i. Nanea Keli'i is a farm manager apprentice of Ma Organic Farms from beautiful Nanakuli, who started as an intern before entering their youth leadership training program and worked her way up from there. She was heavily involved in Ma'o's 2018 Youth Food Sovereignty Congress and is currently working to achieve her BAS at West Oahu. Thank you so much. Kumu Shannon Gukasis from beautiful Waimea Kauai, or Kauai, teaches Hawaiian studies and is instrumental to the Hawaiian studies program at Waianae High School. There, she introduces students to legislative involvement and advocacy. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Pauline Sato has dedicated the past 30 years of her life to environmental preservation, lending herself to such groups as the Nature Conservancy, Bishop Museum, and the Agricultural Leadership Foundation of Hawaii. She is now the executive and program director for Malama Learning Center, and teaches teaches conservation to youth. Mahalo kumu. So let's get this moving. So quick reminder that if any of you have questions for our panelists, please private message them to Ella Pakele. And just want to clarify, though some of these questions will be directed towards specific panelists, we'd like to invite all of you panelists to answer, whenever you have mana'o on any of them. We'd hate to, deny ourselves the opportunity to listen to you guys. So this one is for all panelists. Very briefly, could you give us a little bit more background on yourself, your job, and why you believe conservation is so important? I'd like to pass to Nanea.
Got it. So aloha, my name is Alicia Nanea Keli'i. First, I want to give my mahalos to Iaka'i o Hawaii for allowing me to speak today. So excited, as well as I'm able to speak alongside Kumu Shannon and Kumu Pauline. So thank you for having me here, present with you guys today. So I first wanted to start out, I did a lot of my elementary and intermediate background at a Miley Bible school. So it's a very, very small school in Waianae, and they had a population of under 100. So by the time I was 8th grade, there was only like 3 people in my class. But what I wanted to do after is experience public school. So I actually decided to do my freshman year until I graduated at Waianae High School. And fun fact that Kumu Shannon was actually my kumu when I was a freshman and a junior and a senior. So it's pretty cool I get to speak with her today. Yeah, so as of right now, I am the youngest farm apprentice at Ma'u Farms, and our age ranges from early 20s to early 30s. And what we do is to help with the farm's production, and we help in the areas of harvesting, processing, packaging, all of that. But our most important job is to help supervise and help manage the quality of work for the intern-led groups. So the youth are the backbone of the farm, and they do some really mean work. So I encourage, everybody to uplift their youth no matter where they are. And I guess one other fact about me is that I'm the only farmer right now in my immediate family. Farming for my family skipped a generation, skipped my father's generation, because it wasn't thought of as a profitable job, and it was thought of as a poor person's job. And I can say that right now, that along with me and other people in my line of work can say that's not true. Farming is totally, my language, badass, and it's profitable. And there's a lot of opportunities that you can get from it. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Why I believe in conservation. For me, it's a practice and a value that transcends generations. It doesn't die, and it's always passed on through our ancestors, and it continues to give us benefits and opportunities to the world, the environment, and the people around us. So conservation. Thank you.
Kumu Shannon, would you like to go after that?
Aloha. Kind of to echo what Nanea started. Mahalo to this group of young people who created this space and this is truly Opio-led. You guys reached out, you guys created this avenue for us to be able to come together and share our mana'o. And with you guys at the helm, our future is so bright. So mahalo to this group of four young Opio, and hug your ohana, because they created you guys, and they have created such great young people. Mahalo to also my panelists. It's so awesome to present with a former student who has become a great teacher for her community, and to see her growing these skills that she's learned throughout the years, and to see her being able to apply it for the betterment of her community. So Nanea, you make Wa'anai so proud. And then to this Mana Wāhine, Kumu Pauline, who has been such a great example of why Aina-based education is important for our youth. And she has been a mentor to me, and has created so much spaces for my students and I to be able to do the work we do. So mahalo to her also. And I also wanted to acknowledge, I have Ohana in the room who I haven't seen for over a year, and to have them in this space with me to be able to share. So mahalo you guys for being here, and all our partners who are with us. Aloha oa o kumu pukasis, no ko imayao he kupa no kekaha. I am a child of Waimea and Kekaha. I am the child of Myrna and Richard Bukasis, who has grown me into the person I am today, and have allowed me to, I think, be who I am and find my identity through Aina, through my culture and through connecting with Ike Kupuna. So I mahalo my ohana and my kupuna who have paved the way for me to be here today, to be the person I am. Conservation is Koleana. It's embedded in our DNA. Our kupuna understood the importance of Malama Aina, and how important it is that we connect to Aina as a way to connect to these places that are important to us. So no other choice but to malama our resources, to malama the spaces we are in, and to just grow the next generation to understand how important it is that we continue this work that our kupuna have paved the way for. And I love it. I wouldn't do anything else. I love seeing it, what it can do for the next generation, and also myself as a Kanaka. So yeah, I think, Aloha Aina conservation is just a part of who we are, and continuing to use these best practices that our kupuna have left for us to be stewards of our community and stewards of our land. Mahalo.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, joining our group today on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And yes, mahalo to the wonderful student led group. This is amazing. If you have not learned about what these four are doing, please do, because totally blowing the socks off of our feet. I'm not wearing any socks, but they are. And I'm really pleased to be on the panel with Shannon and Nanea. They're both beautiful people doing wonderful things for the people of Waianae. And I'm fortunate to help in that way as well. So my name is Pauline Michiko Sato. I'm from Oahu, and my parents, actually both of them, lived in Japan, born in Japan. My dad was actually born in Waipahu, but grew up in Japan as a child and came back. But anyway, they helped raise me. I appreciate all that they gave to me. They let me go to college, where I studied natural resources in Michigan, and I came back to Hawaii to help take care of this place, because you can't point fingers and ask someone else to do it if you want it done. That's my belief, is who better to do it than yourself, and inspire other people to do it as well. So, because it's everyone's kuleana. It really is. It isn't just one person's responsibility, or government's responsibility, or scientists or teachers to take care of our aina. It's all of us. So that's the kind of work I've been doing for my career, which is long. And my specialty, I guess, I don't know if it's specialty is the word, my focus has been on Native Hawaiian plants and animals because they are only found here, many of them, and they're very special to this place and to our host culture and to our people. And I think if they disappeared, part of us will disappear too. So that's what I guess conservation is. It's taking care of what's important to us and making sure that it's around for the future generations. And I'm really happy to see the next generation, or you the next 2 generations already. You're taking the lead on that. And it makes me feel so happy. I've been doing this for a long time and training, working with young folks from high school. In fact, Ifit's dad was my intern when he was in high school at Waianae High School. He was 16 years old. And I don't think he thought he was going to have Ifit, but he is, how many siblings you have? You have 3, yeah? So, yeah. Okay, so anyway, I'm so proud to be a kumu of one of my students' children. That to me is beautiful. Anyway, thank you for letting me join today.
Musato, keeping in line with that like idea, well, you all mentioned it at some point, keeping in line with that, you know, intergenerational aspect of Aloha Aina and sustainability, you know, being so heavily involved and dedicated to reconnecting youth to Aina, you know, over your years, what is something that you have learned mentoring students, stressing that importance of conservation to them?
Well, yeah, it's hard to, I guess, say one thing that I've learned, but what I've witnessed is that it is not hard to connect youth to the Aina. It's a natural, but sometimes a doorway is not open for them yet. So if we can just open the door and have people feel welcome and comfortable, and learn about, you know, why and how and what, I mean, all by being in it, I think the youth are just naturally inclined to just dive in and want to do something about it. I've also witnessed that some of the youth are becoming more and more disconnected, and that is for a lot of reasons, but that their world is in their phone or whatever is in front of them, when all around them is beautiful nature. So I think we have to figure out how to open those doors and encourage folks to make that connection, because once they feel the connection, I think almost all of them are in, and they wanna learn more and do something positive for the Aina.
Well, that's beautiful. Miss Hoppy Cruz dropped a question in the chat. How many years have you been in this field? I'm sorry if we're aging.
Well, I think you
dating
said
you right now,
over 30 years. So it started when I was 5. No, just kidding. I think I graduated from college in 84. So how long is that? 94, 2004. 40, over 30, like 35 years or so. So it's been, I've been dedicated all this time. And when I started, let me tell you, there were very few jobs in environmental education, if any. Hawaii Nature Center was called Makiki Environmental Education Center at that time, and I was a volunteer. And I really strongly encourage all youth or anybody at any age to volunteer and intern, because that's how you learn about people and place and opportunities. So anyway, yeah, it's been a long time, and worked at almost every environmental organization here. And then finally started Malama Learning Center in 2004.
That's wonderful, Kumusato. Thank you. Kumu Bukasas or Nanea, do you guys want to follow up on that?
I'll follow up. So talking about like opportunities for youth, this is a perfect spiel for me because we at Ma'o have our spring break internship that we just had, and we have a fall break internship for students, for high school students, and it makes it a little bit more appealing that they get paid. So yeah, I think that from the last 2 spring breaks that we've had, they really enjoyed the work that they've done and they've learned so much. So I just wanted to shout out that opportunity. And if anybody knows students that are already in college, we have an opportunity in winter and summer for them. So if they're looking for reconnecting to Aina, we'll be here. Thank you.
I was just thinking about what Kumu Pauline said about how easily students connect to Aina once we give them those activation points or those points where they can feel that they belong in spaces. And I think, you know, one of the jokes is always that with myself, Kumu Tammy and Kumu Tara who are on here, we love being the bus drivers. Pile the kids in the van and get them to these awesome opportunities like with Ma'o Farms and with Malama Learning Center for them to connect to these practices or these people who are using Aina as a, you know, as a way to engage others. And I think that's what has been really helpful for us is just having partners, having community members that are willing to work with students and for the students to look to these people as mentors and heroes. You know, I think I love how we can look to somebody like Uncle Eric Enos of Waianae Valley as this water warrior, you know, and helping the kids to understand this is who he is, this is what he's dedicated his life to. Not the only one, but there's many like him, and to see themselves in the shoes of these people who have dedicated their life to the health of their community. And I think that's what I love seeing, helping kids connect to these types of opportunities and seeing them grow like Nanea did, you know. We were just talking about how she came to Kauai and she was able to, you know, take some of the things that she learned from Kumu Pauline folks and apply it into up in Kokee and, you know, Malama, that community that I think a lot of people in our own, you know, spaces don't take that opportunity. And for them to see young people doing it, I think is very inspiring. And I hope we can continue to inspire more people to connect to Aina, because once you make the connection, you know, it's hard to sever that, and I think that's how we get more people involved in these types of practices for the betterment of, or to create a resilient Hawaii. Mahalo.
We've organized this, arranged this perfectly, Kumu Bukasas, because this next question is, you know, directly aimed at you, and I mean it's also it's kind of the opposite. I don't want to assume that like legislative involvement is not natural for some students, but you know, to many youth, you know, involvement and advocacy is, you know, so intimidating and you know, a far away experience. How do you approach this in your Hawaiian Studies program and make it seem a little bit more accessible to them?
You know, I think it was the legislative process was also intimidating for me as an adult, you know, and I think for many adults that, and a big part of it is just we don't understand how we belong in those spaces. And I think for our students to create that sense of, that idea, that sense of belonging, that is a, you know, the thing, we go into the Capitol and it's just this huge building, but to know that building is ours, yeah, that space is where we need to be in order to make sure that our voice is heard. And I think that's the big thing that I try to do is just exposure, you know, exposing my haumana to those types of, and I really mahalo them because they let me put them in sometimes really uncomfortable situations, but they're willing to grow alongside. Like, I love being a student with them. I think what has been really successful is connecting them to the experts that can help them to grow those skills that they need in order to feel that they can successfully navigate those spaces. I had really, really awesome friends who at the time were working for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and they were working in public policy and community engagement, and they created these workshops for my haumana to be able to feel confident. They taught them about the legislative process. They taught them how to write testimony. Shout out to Kamaile and Jocelyn at they were once at OHA for being open to working with haumana, because they understood that, you know, sometimes the voice, I tell our haumana, the voice of the student is so much more powerful than the voice of an adult. When students talk, people listen, and it was just getting them confident. I think making sure they understood how to, what was expected of them when they were in certain spaces. We started off real easy, like going to Ku'i at the Capitol and just walking around. And then we were like, okay, let's do something else. Let's now use our voices and learn how to be in this space and advocate for what we believe in. And as soon as they got comfortable with it, I remember once we went with the Civic Club members, and they went to every office on every floor to advocate on behalf of a bill that they were supporting. And just to see them with Kupuna, with Makua, and this group of Opio, I think helped them to also feel like they belong. And I think that's just part of that process, helping young people to understand that these spaces are not reserved for when you're an adult, but to use these spaces whenever you feel that you need, you know, you have something that you care about and you want to make sure that your voice is heard. And I think that's what has been successful. It's just helping them to realize that they belong. And I didn't realize it until we went to testify one day, and I went down to go put money in the meter. And I told them, okay, we finished with this committee meeting. You guys know where your room is. Go look for Auntie Kamaile. And Ethan, your auntie, Principal Hoggy, she stopped me one day, and she's like, wow, those kids we were just so impressed how they knew how to just navigate around that building. They knew exactly where to go. And I think that made me realize that they felt that they belonged. And I think that's part of that process for them, is just creating that sense of belonging in these spaces where we want to make sure that they understand it's important for them to be, or you guys, the young generation, to be a part of. So just some helpful people that connected us to what we needed.
Mahalo nui, Kumu Bukasis. I loved how you said that, you know, it's our space, and you know, you have to teach them how to claim that space. And I love that. Kumu Sato, did you want to follow? I know you aren't as heavily involved in
I just
that aspect, but
what Kumu Shannon was saying brought a memory to me, and was also a picture I saw that one of our fellow Kumu, Kirkland from Nanakuli High, shared in social media. And it was taken about almost 10 years ago. And we took a group of her students from Nanakuli High. We hiked out to Kaena Point. And I did that with Waianae High School as well, with Mike Kurose. And the reason why we did that is we were trying to kind of show people how important the resources at Kaena Point is. And at that point, they were proposing to build a predator-proof fence, but it wasn't up yet. And it was quite controversial. And there may be people who still don't like it. And I personally don't like to see a fence, you know, in a natural area. But the reason why it was put up is because predators like dogs were just ravaging the birds. And it, you know, ground nesters. So they're just, Laysan albatross lays like one egg, you know, and they kill that egg or the baby, and it's over for that whole season. So we took them out, the students out, and it was more so, you know, Kaena Point is right in the backyard, but how many of them have ever been there? How many ever hiked all the way out there? And if they have, how many were kind of taught or exposed? What are you looking at? What are these plants? What are these birds? What's going on here? And And we did that, not just one day, it was actually several experiences, but then the students spoke up. They spoke in favor of building this fence. And I agree, without their voices, I think more it would have been even harder to put up, because there were people putting up some very strong opposition to it. But these kids, this was their place. This was for their future. These birds were their birds. And they spoke up for them. And I just think that was just a beautiful thing. So I totally agree with the power of the student voice. But you have to guide, right? You can't just expect it to happen. You need to open those doors and make sure people know what the issues are and why it's important to have a voice.
Mahalo Kumusato for that beautiful story. And I loved how you said, these birds are their future. This is their future. That was beautiful. And I mean, just your description of that process, that time out there you guys spent out there, it brought some of my memories back. It's just such a beautiful place. Nanea, do you have anything to add? Not necessarily like about involvement at the Capitol, but maybe your experience with movement within the political system, and
Well, for myself personally, I haven't really been in like the political movement more than some of the older staff have been. But what I can share is that the struggles that they go through in order to acquire resources for us, and the sheer amount of finance behind what needs to help us function, it's pretty challenging. So yeah, I don't really have too much to say. I'm just acknowledging that I'm a listener and a student too. So glad to hear from whatever both Kumus have to say.
Okay, thank you. Kumu Bukasis, this is kind of like just hammering you down, but we have the next question that ties in perfectly with, making space, the idea of making space. It's no, sorry, I'm just gonna cut right to it. Through your work, how have you found that women and Aina are connected? And how do you teach this to young people who are going through a very unique point in their lives?
Man, this shows the maturity of you young people, because what great questions. I think Nanaike Kumu, look to our sources, if we look, I love Mo'olelo. I love incorporating Hawaiian stories into my class. I think it's a great engagement piece for our Haumana, to be able to hear all of these great feats that our kupuna, our akua, all of these different elements of our culture have been able to do to pave the way for us. And, if you look back at our past, we have Wāhine who gave birth to islands. We have, the Wāhine who guided people out of the mountains of Wai'anae. We have Wāhine who, like Laka, who the deeper understanding of the creator of this important element of the watershed. And I think, just looking at our stories and understanding how those stories relate to not just seeing them as these gods, but seeing them as these living beings of our Aina. Like, somebody like Pele and Hi'iaka, who are continuously growing Aina and growing forests, I think is helpful for us to look to the past to understand who we are, where we come from. And I like to tell our Haumana that a lot of our, our mele, our oli, our mo'olelo are these roadmaps for us. And they show us koleana, they show us why we did things. Even something, I think, to go back to the idea of civic engagement and advocacy, I think for a lot of us, we think our voice doesn't matter because we don't understand how we can help our voice to matter. And to show our young people that we come from these great advocates. Yeah, we just celebrated Prince Kuhio, and he was one of our, he was the second, he's represented us in America. He realized that his voice needed to be heard for our people. He loved our homeland. I think, Ethan, I love what you said the other day. I do what I do because I love Hawaii. And I think that's, something that is important to all of us. We love where we come from. We love this place that we call home, and what can we do to grow it and to help it to thrive. And I think looking to the past and understanding who we come from. I love being Wahine. I love the role models who have come before us. I love the Aina warriors like Kumusato and all of those who have paved the way for us to be able to do what we do today, and who have, I think, continued to help us thrive in the way we've been thriving. So I think, yeah, we have great Wahine role models that we see in our stories, we see through the different work that we do. And the past and future is Wahine, I think we have lots of Wahine who did great for us, and we understand who we have to be to navigate our future. So, I think Wahine and looking at the stories of our people has helped me to better understand who I am as a female and what is my koleana in this space that I am in.
Mahalo kumu so much. Nanea Kumusato. I'll just say, Kumusato.
Okay. Yeah, deep question. What I was thinking about was how the connection of growing and birthing things. Women give birth. Of course, men play a role, but women are the ones, who give birth. And when you plant that seed, whether it's a real literal or figurative seed, and you nourish it and it grows, somehow I think there's a lot of Wahine power in that. And I'm proud to be a Wahine, very proud. Wouldn't want it to be any other way. And very, very proud to be with other Mana Wāhine and the Kane too. It cannot just be one side, and it can be, all shades of people, because yeah, we all live in this place, right? And we all have a role to play, and hopefully it will be a positive one. So I think Aina brings people together. Hopefully it does.
Nanea.
I'm just being a listener right now.
Okay,
yeah, totally. Well,
I'm gonna jump in real quick to kind of piggyback on what Auntie Pauline was saying. It always reminds me of the quote, "Ola no eo, heali ika aina he kawa ki kanaka." Man is chief, land is servant, and that's always continuing the movement between Kanaka people, but as well with the Aina, right? Without the Aina, we wouldn't be here. And then to kind of relate it back to the question, without the Wahine, we wouldn't be here. Some of our greatest kings and queen, or some of our greatest queens and our goddesses in our Ikawakahiko, in our Hawaiian history, Pele, Hi'iaka, Ho'opoe, all of them, they were the foundations. Papa and Wakia, Papa was there for the Aina, right? So even from the very start of our Hawaiian culture, Papa was the Aina, whereas Wakia was Father Sky, right? So from the very beginning, we had that connection between Wahine and Aina. So I always remember that quote as I'm listening to Auntie Pauline talk about the connection between Wahine and Aina.
Mahalo nui, Hayden. Always great to remind us. And Kumu Shannon did this so eloquently and beautifully earlier too, and Ella summarized it wonderfully. The past and present and future is Wāhine. Now this is going to get a little bit more serious, and I invite all of our speakers, if they are not comfortable answering this question, to just duck out. And this is held juxtaposed to our wonderful, beautiful conversation about creation and Aina. But it's speaking about Mana Wāhine, we also have to acknowledge this. In the past couple of weeks, there have been some very publicized cases of femicides in the world. What role do you feel that Aina plays in the protection of women? And this is open to all panelists.
I guess I'll go first for this one. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm not scared of this question. It's something that we have to acknowledge, and I guess to hop right into it, I believe that Aina protects women through empowerment, and empowerment leads to finding routes of how we protect our health, our well-being, our dignity, our right to education. Because if you think about it, even if women were completely secluded from the classroom and we were just stuck with land, there's not one day you can go without learning something new. So definitely Aina protects through empowerment. And I wanted to share from this one article. It's about the women's farmers protests in India. And I wanted to share a quote that I thought was pretty awesome. From Jasbir Kaur. I think I said that right. She's a 74-year-old farmer from Rampur. And begin quotes, she says, "Why should we go back? This is not just the men's protest. We toil in the fields alongside men. Who are we if not farmers?" So what I love about that quote is that she pretty much said that the work you do shouldn't be undermined or undervalued, no matter what your gender, your position, or your work is. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Beautiful, and it's so enlightening to think about these issues as worldwide issues, connection to Aina, women's connection to Aina. It's an issue that the world is facing and sharing and enduring right now. Kumu Shannon, Kumu Sato.
I'll add on. I think like Kumu Pauline said, I think Aina connects people. When you engage with Aina, there's no, I don't know, it's that dualism, yeah, that it takes everybody in order to help Aina thrive. And I think, when you engage with Aina, you're there for Aina. And so it's not about whether or not I feel more empowered than you, but it's to empower Aina. And I think if we all look at it in that sense, that as a collective, we're there for the betterment of Aina, I think that helps with this idea of one over the other, or, categorizing people, that our purpose should be to be stewards, to be kama Aina or maka Ainana, to that everybody is there for the purpose of Aina. I think Aina also shows us this idea of dualism, that like the Kumulipo, that what was created in the Kai was created on the Aina, and that without one, you cannot have the other. Without Kane, you cannot have Wāhine. Without Wāhine, you cannot have Kane. So if we understand that Aina is meant for all of us to come together as a space for us to live, to breathe, to grow together, we put all of those other differences aside, because our purpose for being there is for the betterment and of our Aina, and so that all of us can thrive together. So, I think Aina, like Kumu Pauline said, is a great space to connect people and not disconnect.
Kumu Sato, do you have anything?
That's a hard question. I'm glad Maneo just jumped in. I'm like, I don't know. Now that the two great answers, I can add something, I think. I mean, from my perspective, it's really hard to fathom how people can be so violent. It's just not in my nature, and so it's very, it's yeah, shocking. It's disheartening that there's so much violence against people in general, but also women in particular. And we all have that in us, I guess, but some people, for some reason, take it out in very physical ways. And I just wonder, like, if they were more connected to Aina, or had a greater sense of peace within themselves, would they be so violent? And I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but looking at the view behind EFIT right now, Kalalau Valley, how could you not enjoy, feel at peace with that? It is so beautiful to spend a day there or an hour and feel your blood pressure go down. Maybe that's what we just need. We just all need that Aina break every day. And maybe we'll be a more peaceful people.
Thank you so much. I love that concept of spiritual healing through Aina. I can imagine, we were talking earlier about the West Oahu Sustainability Program. I can imagine Kumu Manu Myers has a lot to say on that. The healing power of Aina. Man, so much thanks to you guys, handling that hard question and just answering it so eloquently, so beautifully, excuse me, dear goodness. I'd like to take us away from this, and keep the conversation going. The following is a question for, I'd like to make it clear that the following is a question for everyone, as we are all lifelong students of Aloha Aina. But I'd like to start with you, Nanea, as someone closer to the beginning of your journey in this field. How do you work in, and we were just talking about West Oahu. How do you work in Aloha Aina to your Western education? And how do you teach it to other students who might not be connected to this field as you are and afforded the same opportunities that you are?
Yeah, so what I learned in my degree program, which is the Sustainable Community Food Systems under Applied Science, is all of it is pretty much directly applicable to what I do at Ma'o. And one of the many, many things that I've learned through that program is that soil is alive. And soil encompasses all of these things, whether it be bacteria or insects and all kinds of other things. You can pretty much parallel that to your own body. All of these organs that work in systems, it's pretty much the same thing for soil. It has a life and it's alive. And because I now know that, I realize that anything that I do with my peers, whether it be for adding non-chemical amendments to our soil, like for example, compost and bone meal and all this other good stuff, and helping to till organic matter into the soil. And that could just be like the weeds, leaves that just kind of fall off the trees. All of that helps out soil. And that for me is a direct way to Aloha Aina, a pretty direct way at that. So that's what, that's how I can relate to that. And just not to forget that just sitting down in webinars like these and just learning for yourself and your Aina is also a form of Aloha Aina. So not to forget that. How I can teach it to others. So I guess one thing that we all have in common is food. And so you don't need to be in the agricultural field to know that food is important. But I guess what I want to stress is that your relationship to food doesn't begin when you buy it from the store. and it doesn't end when you finish eating it. I think understanding and acknowledging that your food came from someone else's aina or your own, and that everything that it takes, whether it be the harvesting, the processing, the distributing, the marketing, and the creating or cooking of it, is a lot to take it, to get it to your plate or your bowl. And so just also acknowledging that is aloha aina. So yeah, they might not have the same opportunities or be in the same field as I am, but yeah, that's something that I love to teach because it's holistic and it's simple to understand. Yeah, thank you.
To jump in real quick, I wanted to respond to what you just said. So you were talking about the literal sense of soil is alive. And yes, I totally 100% agree in that. But then also metaphorically, that 100% relates back to our group name, Ea Ka'ai o Hawaii. So the translation of our group name basically represents that with Ea is the life, the sovereignty, the breath. With the Ea, our I, the food, the aina, work together to create a more resilient Hawaii. So Ea Ka'ai o Hawaii. In the life, there is food, but also the reciprocal of that is in the food, there is life. So I think that really translates to what Nanea was saying, although she had that, she has this advantage because she's taking those classes to learn all those science terms and things like that to prove that that soil is alive. Relating back to what Auntie Shannon said, it's in our DNA, right? So even before I heard Auntie Nanea talk about soil being alive, I knew from our name just alone that in the aina, there is I, in the aina, there is life. So I just found that really cool how those two related.
Thank you, Hayden. And I'd also love to, piggyback on what you said. These science terms, as you put it, they're all just validating indigenous knowledge, what ancestral knowledge, what we have had in our na'au, what we have had in our DNA, as you said, kumubukases. And you can get degrees in Western education, and you'll find exactly what you started with. Your connection to aina is beautiful, and it's ancestral, and it's crucial. And I loved Nanea, how you said that there are so many different forms of aloha aina, and we were talking about it, civic duty, and actually being in the earth, and fighting different battles at different times. I'd like to pass it to Kumubukasis or Kumusato.
I'll jump in. I think, this idea of Western science, indigenous knowledge, I think the more tools we can add to that tool belt as people, with the education, that I love what Nanea is doing and going through this program to get the pala pala, although this is ike that is in her, sometimes we got to prove that we know these things, and we operate in a world where the pala pala is such an important thing, not just to prove what we can do, but to show others that we can survive in these types of systems that sometimes maybe we feel does not support us. And, to see young people being able to go into these fields of conservation and pushing themselves in sometimes these more challenging, types of careers, I think is really, really, for me as a kumu, really inspiring, and shows me what I need to do in order to prepare our young people for that next step of their journey. And I love this idea of soil. We had a great conversation once about soil, and seeing soil as papa hanau moku, that when we're testing the soil and we're trying to bring that soil back to life, we bringing back this wahine, going back to the wahine again. We're bringing back this wahine, or this important deity in our culture, this important element in our culture or in, I think, just in Hawaii, that helps us to build this foundation for which we all stand on. And I love that idea of that mixing of Western knowledge and indigenous knowledge, and seeing the parallels that they both have. And like I said, using all of these tools that we have to help us to navigate these spaces that we enter. And Nanea is doing such a great job of taking these types of skills she's learning in this program, and now how are you going to apply it to your community? And I think that's what I love, when you go out and grow yourself and then come back to your community and grow your community with all of these things that you've learned. So Nanea is a great example, I think, for these young people, as where these interests, these passions you guys have can take you, and the hard work and the resilience that it takes to get through those spaces. So, mahalo Nanea for being, I think, that great example for young people to follow.
Kumusato.
I've just been listening so much, I kind of forgot the question. Repeat the question.
Yeah. So how do you work in Aloha? Oh, dear goodness. How do you work in Aloha Aina to your Western education, and how do you teach it to others, to students who are not as connected to this field and not afforded the same opportunities as you are?
Wow, yeah, that's actually a pretty deep question. It makes me think about a lot of things. I saw Tammy wrote something, Tammy Jones, she's one of my thought partners in life, that, you know, connections to Aina need to be part of the K-12 experience for all. And I totally agree. I think that's, you know, how do you connect Aina? There's so many ways. You can do it through science. You can do it through social studies. You can do it through art, English. I mean, any subject area. And that's what I learned when I studied, you know, environmental education, that environment is everything around us. So it's not one subject, it's actually everything, just combined. And that's the life we live in, right? We don't live in just a world of one subject. We live with everything connected. So why shouldn't our learning be connected to? And I really do think, you know, there are definitely strengths to make it more culturally based, more indigenous, and not just, you know, teach what could be taught in any other place and expect it to work in Hawaii. I think Hawaii, we have our own way, and that we should nurture that and build on the connections. And even, you know, I'm not Hawaiian, but I've been working with the Hawaiian environment and Hawaiian people for so long that I, you know, definitely feel very connected. But for some people, even living in Hawaii, they might not feel as connected, or even like they should be connected. You know what I'm saying? Like I've even talked to some teachers, and we were using the term Aina-based education. And to me, I was using that kind of as a broad term, like Aina environment, you know, it's like Aina-based. Some teachers are like, oh, I don't think I should be teaching that because I'm not Hawaiian. I don't know enough about Hawaiian environment or Hawaiian culture, so I don't think I should be teaching Aina-based education. These are wonderful, strong, good teachers, you know, and I thought, okay, am I maybe missing something? Maybe I shouldn't be using that term, because we don't want to make it exclusionary. We want to make it inclusive. So anyway, I guess I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head, but I really do feel like it's something that can be incorporated in every subject area, and that we should be inviting anyone who wants to be part of this to learn and be part of a solution.
If I may, like, interject just pretty briefly, I really think what like Kumasato said about how youth don't feel like they should be connected or that they are disconnected, because I feel like I relate to that, especially before I joined this program and was with like all these my amazing like team members. I feel like generally in public school you're not really exposed to topics like this, and so because that door like it was mentioned before isn't open, I feel like people aren't even aware of it, and so I think teaching these things is really important. And yeah.
To really piggyback off what Anna just said, and this is a question for all of our panelists as well. For the public schools or other schools that maybe don't have the budget to make a greenhouse at school or don't have the budget to purchase tools or things like that, what is the first way, or how do we open this door for Keiki and Homana to learn about and to participate in this Aina-based education?
I'm going to go back to soil. I'm sure every school ground has soil. Study the soil. It's not always alive, right? There's some places where it just died, but there's a story to that too. So you don't need a lot. You might maybe reach out to professors at universities that might have the soil test kits. A lot of them just want to connect to schools, but they don't know how. We happen to know a lot, and there are a lot of folks who they're like, yeah, have the students talk to us. We want to reach out. I have a friend who's a geologist, and he's born and raised in Hawaii. She's at University of Hawaii, Manoa. And he's just pretty disheartened because there's very few local kids going to geology. Which is like, come on, volcanoes, they're everywhere, we should have Hawaiian geologists, but they're just not. So he's like, anytime I can speak to students, especially if they're, Native Hawaiian students, or any local student, they want to. So I would just say, build those relationships, make those connections. If anybody needs to know, folks, I've been working in this field for a long time. So yeah, I can connect people if they're very interested in wanting to, work with professionals in the field who can help.
I guess I'll jump in. I think a lot of people assume Aina-based education means you have to be in that place in order to learn, and I think Aina-based, for example, Aina-based education about Ka'ala can happen in the classroom also, bringing these spaces into our classroom, or even using, I think, our campus. Your campus can be a place of learning, something like Kilo. I've had my Mana Wāhine campus, and we, it's something we do with Kumu Pauline folks, where we kilo the sky, we kilo the land, we kilo people. And something as simple as that to connect our students to this understanding of observation and observing your environment, can be as little as that. And I think the other thing is, which has been really successful for my classes, like Kumu said, finding community members who, if you cannot get your class out to them, they are so willing to come into our class and share their expertise. We had, right now with virtual learning, we have this opportunity to connect with people even outside of our own spaces. We can have conversations with people on the Big Island. We can have experts that are coming from, different parts of America. And I think just allowing our students to connect with these different professionals, these different great minds, these different Aloha Aina is really, really helpful in building that connection to Aina, and then getting them out in those spaces and actually having them ho'ohuli kalima ilalo. Yeah, just getting your hands in the dirt and doing the work. And I remember, I think it was Ethan's mom, she asked, how do we normalize Aina-based education? And I think it's continuing to do these things and continuing to, or just setting space for them, even if you feel like you don't have the expertise to do it, what can you do in your own space? What do you know about the land? What do you know about our natural resources that you can share with students? You know, for me, culture-based education is important. That was the foundation of what I went to school for. So that's what I use because that's what I'm comfortable using. That's what I can connect with. But it doesn't mean that everybody has to use culture-based education in order to do place-based education. I think it's how can you connect your students to if land is important, if our communities are important, you know, how do we connect the students to those types of opportunities in our spaces, and not necessarily meaning we gotta take you out. Oh, going on field trips, amazing. I would go on a field trip. I would go on a field trip every day with my home. And we would be out, you know, our classroom would be out in the community if, you know, we had that freedom to roam. But, you know, how do I now take what they learn when they are out in the field and bring that into the classroom so that they can see that Aina-based education also happens within our four walls, the same type of education that we're giving them when they're out. And I think just to add that something that Solomon Enos shared at one of our PD, you know, change the narrative or we keep reading the same book. And so if you believe in these types of things that you feel is important for your students to be able to, or for students to connect to, you know, then put as much effort into it as you can and try to do what, sometimes you gotta bend the rules until you get pushed back. And you know, that's sometimes what even I have to do, bend the rules until we get pushed back. And you know, and I think, but for the most part, you know, I think people are wanting students to be out there and to learn and to be able to apply what they learn in the classroom to the real world. So, you know, I think there's more space for us to be doing this type of work.
Nanea?
I'll just say I totally agree with everything. And that also shout out to this chat because I'm loving what everybody's saying in the chat. It's pretty awesome. I'm good.
Well, mahalo. That's, yeah, it's amazing. And it kind of ties back to what Kumusato, Kumupukasis, and Nanea, you guys were all saying at some point, you know, all just a little bit differently. Aina is interdisciplinary. It's and you know, it can be taught at all ages, at all levels. And so, you know, just thank you so much. I'm going to start reading off some questions from the chat that we've received. And I'd also like to remind everyone that you know, please not DM, this isn't Instagram. Message, private message, there we go. Private message, Ella Pekele, if you have any questions that you just are dying to ask. And I think a little bit later on we can, you know, open it up. So this first question is for Nanea. How is it being in her role at Ma'o as a female?
Well, just want to say that at Ma'o as a female, it's pretty empowering. I just like, if I were to say the population ratio at Ma'o, there's actually more women than men at the farm. And it could be interns, and even a majority of the staff is women, and what they do is awesome. Actually, one of them is in this Zoom right now. And so, yeah, it's really reciprocal, like empowerment between women on the farm. Like my direct mentor is Kawi-sana. She's the farm manager. And she's said some pretty profound things to me. And, you know, you just think about it as you're working and you're like, yeah, we are strong, you know? Just yesterday, she shared a quote that she got from her mentor, Nahiraka, from Aotearoa. And the quote was that we are just one point between two eternities. And so as a woman, or as whatever we think ourselves as, the impact that we do is important. And so, yeah, I think I'll just end it there.
I'd also love to shout out one of Nanea's mentors in the chat in the room right now. Chelsea Onaga connected us with Kumu, not Kumu, excuse me, Kukui Mauna Kea Froth to Nanea and made this entire thing possible. And just so much thanks to her, for just being so receptive and making this happen. Yeah, she is Kumu already. Yes. Kumu Bukasus, Kumu Sato. I don't know if you can answer for Ma'o, but I'd love to hear how it's spelled in your field. I mean, especially STEM field, Kumu Sato. I'd love to hear how going into that kind of science-y. That's not well articulated at all, but going into that field, how it's been as a woman.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was in my mind, I'm not necessarily a STEM person. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a STEM person, though I, totally am into it. But in my mind, there's nothing to me more connected to STEM than Aina. I mean, come on, we're trying to fix floods or erosion or create new coral reefs. I mean, all of that is so STEM. But for some reason in our schools, some schools don't consider Aina part of STEM. It's like you got to be a robot or I don't know, medical. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot of need to figure out solutions that involve engineering, math, science, technology. And so I think that the world is really open. We need to have more people going into STEM and believing that they're STEM. And STEAM, we add the Aina or art in it. Yeah, but it's everywhere to me. I think it's just everywhere. And I was just chatting with one of our participants because she long story short, she is now getting her master's as a teacher. But when I first met her, she was a student in high school. And finally, we're connecting again, and we've been using her photograph on many of our publication materials. And there she is. So I'm just totally enjoying this experience because of the connections that are happening. This is, how many years was it? And it was like over 10 years, right?
It's probably 16 years now. Yeah, 16
years.
years since or like more than that, because I graduated.
That's amazing. So we're connecting after 16 years.
So that's how, I was just explaining to Pauline, because like she said she's part of the Malama Learning Center. And when I was at Kapolei High School, I mentioned it inside the chat, was that I was part of the Science Academy, and they gave opportunities to go with the Nature Conservancy to do like stewardship projects in the Honolulu Preserve. And so we were able to do that. And on their banner for the Malama Learning Center is my picture, because they had a photo shoot just while we were doing some of the eradication, and I was staring at the mamaki. And yeah, it's just funny how they're still using it even today. It's like a young Shonda, but yeah, I'm still, because of that connection, because of those opportunities that I was given in high school and middle school, just through clubs and just showing an interest, my teacher was able to direct me in this kind of path. And it still obviously has stayed with me. And I hope to bring that to my students here in Hilo.
Yeah. Anyway, isn't it awesome? Thank you so much for for being here and saying that. And yeah, see, that's one of the questions Ifit posed that may come up later is what keeps me going, right? Why do I keep doing this crazy job? But it's because of things like that, because of Shonda, because of the students and the kumu that I get to work with. I mean, geez, what a reward. What a reward to have. Mahalo for that.
I think vice versa, it's a reward for us, knowing that now we can speak alongside you guys now. So that's cool too.
Responding to some things that are going on in the chat. Toylin, you said love the connection in this room. Me too. When we were first coming up with this idea of hosting this webinar, we were brainstorming possible names and stuff like that. And we didn't know at that time that all these connections would be formed, whether it was between our hosts, so like Kumu Shannon was Nanel's Kumu, or it was between Pauline and now Chandra. It's just all these different connections that and that's all over Aina. Our theme of this session is Aina. So not only connecting back to what Auntie Shannon said is you don't have to be in the outside to teach Aina and to learn about Aina. You can do things in the classroom. We're all located across the state. And yet because of this one topic of Aina, we were all able to touch base with each other and create these, remember these connections that were already there and make new connections off of it. So I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, to speak to what Hayden was saying, in the creation of this event, I reached out to like 5 different people. I reached out to Kumukui, and she directed me to Miss Onaga, and then to Nanea and oh goodness, I'm blanking. I'm so sorry. And it was her reasoning was she wanted intergenerational speakers. She wanted this idea of Aina is intergenerational, to be heard, to be seen, and man, I'm seeing it right now. We're all seeing it, and it's so beautiful. It's just enlightening. It's amazing. And so thank you guys so much. Now, similar to what happened to Kumusato earlier, I've forgotten the question. I've forgotten the question that I'm supposed to ask right now.
I'll step in
Angela,
real quick.
What's that?
I'll step in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Hayden. Sorry.
This is a question directed to all our panelists and possibly some people, so all of our participants as well. We all know we have the inner drive to learn about Aina and keep the Aina going. But since now it's been 1 year of COVID, 1 year of quarantining and all that kind of stuff, has anyone, not just our panelists, but also our participants, has anyone seen a change in people's mana'o, in their intentions when it comes to Aina? Because like for me, I know of plenty of my classmates who didn't want to go outside with me in the mala because their hands were going to get muddy. But now after 1 year of being quarantined, they're like, hey, look at this new plant I'm growing, or look what I got from this nonprofit. So has anybody noticed or seen these changes in people's mana'o that's happened because of now we're at 1 year of COVID? So directed to our panelists, but as well as participants, if you guys noticed any of that happening, I would love to hear about that.
I guess I'll go. So because of COVID, what I've seen is my brother. He was like the most inside person, plays Call of Duty all day. And because of COVID, and now that classes are online, he has all this time to go surfing. And so now he's developed this relationship outside of the house to all of these uncle, longtime surfers. And now he's speaking like, oh, bruh this, bruh that. And, just enjoying his life and what he does. So it was positive for my brother, who is my only sibling at that. So I'm happy for him in this way, not the other way.
I guess I'll add to, I definitely think this time and this kind of time of rest for us has reignited the fire in people to get out there and to engage with Aina. I see it in the Haumana, you know. They're constantly asking, when can we go out? When can we go on Huaka'i? I think a lot of people just want to get out there. I think we've realized how important, you know, if we didn't already know, how important our local farmers are, you know, how they've been feeding us in this time and showing us that we are able to sustain ourselves, and that all we need is really Hawaii. All we need is right here. And I think that has definitely for my students been something that they've been, the desire is there. They want to be out there. They want to get their hands in the land. You know, we've been doing things online. They've been becoming expert propagators. I don't know if I use that word correctly, but we've been doing lots of propagation at home, you know, and trying to build up. I told them, you know, if we cannot get out at Aina right now, we're gonna grow our plants at home. We're gonna fill our shade house so that when we are ready to go out there, we have everything we need to get the work done. And I think, you know, that has been a motivation for them to although we have some, like we were talking earlier, you know, the dogs knock over the plants, the chickens jumped off the wall and, you know, pecked at the seeds. I think the students have taken that koleana to try and malama Aina in their own spaces, so that when the time comes for us to be out in the field again, that they're ready for those opportunities. So yeah, Hayden, I think a lot of students are ready. I think a lot of people are wanting to engage with Aina again and get their hands out there. And I think, and hopefully, you know, when things start to loosen up for everybody, we can see our Aloha Aina Army out there doing the work to help Hawaii thrive.
I have a couple of thoughts. One is, and Tammy was writing in the chat, you know, we were able to do an Arbor Day in November, and all like drive through with a mask and everything, and people were just lining up for hours, much to my dismay, because it's like, no, we're not ready. But they just wanted a plant, you know, they're like, I want my fruit tree, or I want this and that. Like, wow, there's a lot of interest in growing things. Hopefully they planted them all. They're really, yeah, there's a lot more interest. And from our work point of view, we grow a lot of native plants. And so there's plant media that we need. One of them's perlite, which is a natural material. It's like expanded rock. National shortage, because everyone's growing stuff. I'm like, give me my perlite. I need my perlite to grow my native plants. That's what's happening, you know, all over. Everyone's just like, I want to plant now. I want to do my stuff, make, you know, because they use it in potting mix and all that. So that's a great thing. And at Malama Learning Center, we're starting a new program we're calling Urban Aina, because we live in an urban area and there's Aina all around us, and let's use our backyards, let's use our school grounds, let's use all these places to grow food, to grow native plants, to grow lay plants. We're going to have a garden that combines all of that in Kunia, and we're going to invite people to come and learn with us on how to do this together, and hopefully inspire folks to do it in their own backyards, with or without perlite.
Mahalo nui to all of our speakers for sharing. We also have in the chat a lot of people sharing. I see KDK Aloha, who is a Waianae High School English teacher. She shared that their students are looking for a lot more hands-on opportunities. They're appreciating them in different ways. I also saw that the Arbor Day thing, students are suffering in isolation. They want to get out and connect to their environment. And that was from Tori Lynn Smith. Thank you. Yeah. And Miss Hoppy Cruz just said that it is disheartening in reality, what Tori just shared. And she is looking forward to her community being able to return to spaces where they can connect and reconnect. You know, this is all so amazing. And I feel like, you know, this energy, as Kumusato said earlier, and these connections, this is why, you know, she keeps going. She briefly touched upon this question, and I'd like to ask it now. As someone, well, I'm directing it at you, Kumusato, right now, but I'd love for everyone to answer this. As someone who has been so heavily involved over so many years, how do you keep that sense of urgency and dedication to this work? How do you keep that passion burning? And I mean, this can also tie into that COVID question. How are you keeping that flame alive in times of COVID?
And also, sorry, one last thing to add on to that question. How do you inspire others to reignite their personal fire or bring that out that they might not know they had? So how do you preserve yours, I guess, but then also how do you share and ignite others to share your ike and get everyone else involved to really touch base with the aina?
Wow, I don't know if I can answer that, but I have to say I've been interviewed, you know, the past 6 months or so by different people, and they kind of ask similar questions, and I'm thinking, I must be getting really old for people to ask that. How do you keep doing it? You know how? So I don't know. It's DNA. It's in me. I think I can't do anything else. This is what I do and what drives me. And I'm lucky I have a passion that I can do for my living. It's 24/7. I mean, I'm gardening at home and doing all kinds of stuff. So it's just everything about me. So I feel aligned. And I think that's maybe what's helpful. You know, if you in your life, if there's a disalignment, you might not think you're doing the right thing. But I'm lucky in that way that I feel very aligned. And I align myself with people who are very positive people, and that really helps. And I work a lot with youth. I work with teachers, and that's all about, you know, future. Yeah, so I think it's just bringing all those good mana together is like my food. Yeah, that's what keeps me going.
Thank you, Kumusato. Beautiful. Just yeah, beautiful. Kumubukasas, oh, sorry, Nanea, you unmuted.
Oh, yeah, I guess I've been around Ma'o for 5 years, so it's, you know, it's not long and it's not short either, but like what keeps me going, it's definitely a lot of it is Aina, but a big portion of it is the youth, and that I won't allow myself to let them down, because I know that I am a peer mentor and that I am needed in their space, especially for their internships and for just helping them learn, like around, you know, it's a lot because they deal with the job at Ma'o, their family, their school. So I know it's a lot, and you know, what keeps me going is I need to be there for them. And how I keep them going is, it's simple. It's like the work never ends. It's always cyclical. It never stops. There's always something to do, and we always need them to be there because we love their presence in the space, and that we actually need more youth in the space. So yeah.
I'll jump in. What keeps me going? Mana keep me going. Young people keep me going. I rather engage with young people than adults. I think young people have such a different lens than adults. You know, I always tell my Mana, you cannot fix a broken adult, but you can help grow a young person. And I love watching young people grow, and I love how young people help me to grow also as a person, as a kumu. I think Koleana keeps me going. The privilege of doing the work that I'm doing, the privilege of being able to engage with our Aina, to engage with community, to build these community partnerships that have been a great way of building relationship for myself and my students. And I think just watching people like Nanea, like you folks, you guys inspire me to continue to do the work, because I see how it impacts you folks, and I see how much you guys grow from being able to engage in these types of learning environments, whether it's through Aina-based education or what, you know, I think Anna talked the other day about being interested in social justice. You know, I watched Ifit and his Ohana testify at a community meeting on the love that they have for Makaha Valley. You know, I think all of these things you guys do keep me going and makes me excited to want to do more. And I feed off of my Mana just as much as they feed off of me, and I grow. You know, they become my teacher. And like Nanea, she has been a teacher for me also, to see the work that she does. And I think that's what keeps me going, to see you guys being out in these spaces. And I hope one of you soon will come and take my place in the classroom. And I think that's what we, or maybe not just necessarily take my place, but fill the spaces. Yeah, and I think that's what we do. And like with, you know, Pauline does the work to grow more people, to continue to help provide those hands that we need in these types of environments, in these types of careers in Hawaii. And I think that's what I love Hawaii. Like Ethan said, I love Hawaii, and that's what keeps me going. My love for this place, my love for our people, and I think my love for that next generation of what you guys can provide for us. With you guys, our future is so bright. Like I said, you know, if we cannot leave you guys with the things that you guys need to build this space even better and make it better than what we've left for you, then, you know, what are we doing? And I love the privilege of being able to help you guys, help others grow, and to help Hawaii grow. Mahalo.
Mahalo so much. That's, yeah, it's all beautiful, you know. And I'm not even going to try to tie it into the next question. I can't. That was our closing out question, but we have 8 more minutes until we're going to start wrap up. We have one last question that you know, we got in the chat, and it really resonates with me, and I hope it really resonates with everyone else. And I'm sure with how eloquent and, you know, just full of Ike our speakers are, they're going to be able to turn it into a blowout question. How do you think the study and protection of the Aina in Hawaii has inspired and encouraged the rest of the world? You know, kind of like how we tied it to the Indian farmers and their protests. Yeah. I see everyone thinking. Nanea, you look the most ready. Are you good?
I'm having short-term memory. So if you could repeat the question.
Oh yeah, totally. So how do you think the study and protection of Aina in Hawaii has inspired and encouraged the rest of the world to, I mean, reconnect with Aina, or, you know, do something similar to that? And Anna just pasted it in the chat. Thank you, Anna.
Well, the first thing I think about is the reciprocal inspiration among indigenous people. And that comes, you know, that, like I kind of put in chat, like there's a ripple effect So like the study and protection of our Aina has reflected on the study and protection of, you know, Aotearoa to Tahiti and all these places. And we've all found something unique about our own Aina that we want to protect. And so I think it's just encouraged the world to find something that they need to connect to, because there's a lot of people, and I've met some that kind of just be like, oh, I'm just floating around here and there. I'm not really rooted into one place or in a place at all. So I think that it just encourages rooting yourself to find, you know, to have a foundation. And I guess I'll share one thing that I found out about where I work and where I call home now, Lu'u'u'olei, is that the soil is super unique. It also has its own specific name, Lu'u'u'olei vertisol, and it's only found, the vertisol is only found in 1% of the world. If you look at the research, and it's like, you wouldn't have found that out unless you really push yourself to go and find that knowledge. So that definitely deepened my connection to where I live and where I work. Thank you.
I can go next. I don't know if any of you have went to the World Conservation Congress. That was, I can't even remember how long ago, maybe 9 years ago or so. It was a international conference that came to Hawaii. All, like, many countries came over. And it cost a lot of money to put on. Hawaii had to bid. It was like bidding for the Olympics, you know, put in your bid and get selected. They select Hawaii, I think, because of unique stories we have about how we connect people and place. And cultural protection was just interwoven in almost, you know, every presentation. And that was like one of the best conferences I've been to, period. It was just so amazing for the global connections. And I think when you think of it, it's like Hawaii, we're so tiny, you know, I mean, our land mass is like so small. We're the most isolated set of islands in the world. How is it that we have such strength? And I think it's because people from our indigenous culture here, the connection to the land, the place, the people, like, it's so strong. And in other places it's strong too. I mean, Aotearoa, maybe even stronger, right? But we have it, at least in the United States, we're pretty much kind of trailblazing that. And I find it a real sense of pride that we are looked up to in that sense of conservation with culture. Like, it's kind of hard to find a conservation project where they're not trying to connect to the people who live there. It's almost like that's how you do it. It isn't in other places. So I think we have some lessons we can share on how we've tried to, you know, build the connections even stronger. And the connection I want to personally build stronger is with the growing of food, like agriculture and like native forest conservation. And because we're kind of like, you know, the agriculture is usually lower in the terrain, and forest conservation is higher, but we touch each other. And there's a lot of similar issues and ways that we can work together even more. And I'll just put it out there. One of my thoughts is to have like an intern program with, you know, folks who are really into growing the food, and an intern program with folks who are really into the growing the native plants and protecting the birds, and have them learn from each other. Because I think that's also gonna strengthen what we're doing in Hawaii.
Well, if you do, can I sign up? Like, I'm submitting my application right now. Yep, I'm first, guys. Everyone else after me. But please, Kumu, Bukases, and thank you, Kumu Sato and Nanea. Please close this up.
I'm second. I'm signing up to be the second. I think I'll just end with one of my friends said, aloha is our superpower, and this simultaneous exchange of love, I think, between us and Aina, and like Kumu Pauline, she said it so well, right? Between people and Aina, between people, helps us to understand what is our koleana to Aina. How should we be treating our Aina? We have so many stories about that turns Aina into these deities, to show us that, to bring a face to it, to bring a body to show us that we have this love for someone like Papahana Moku, because she is the Aina, she is the soil that we are. And I think that's what we bring to the world, this aloha, that we come from Kupuna, who understood that it was a reciprocal thing, and that we're not just taking from Aina, but that it's also important that we give back in that same, and I think, yeah, our practices of Malama Aina, I think, but also connecting to other places and learning from other indigenous cultures on, things that we can apply into our own homelands, I think is also important. That when Hokulea went around the world, they weren't just spreading this message of conservation and aloha Aina and Malama Aina, but they were also learning from these other indigenous cultures, so that we have this database, or this hui of warriors around the world who are doing the same thing in their own spaces. And I think that's, like connecting with not just Hawaii, but connecting with the world, and learning from each other is our greatest gift. And I think we can do that right now with these, these platforms that we have, and being able to, for me, as I always come from that approach of a kumu, being able to not just connect my homana to their community, but how do we connect them also to the global community? And we're doing something right now with fire mitigation with Kumutera and Kumutami, because of the impact that wildfires have in Waianae. But also through this journey, we've been learning how other cultures connected with fire, and our students are able to look at, oh, this is how my kupuna connected to fire, and this is how other indigenous peoples used fire in a positive way. And I think that's important, that we continue to grow as people, continue to not just look to our source, but look out and use all of these practices that people have been using to malama and to help our land and our resources thrive. And I think it's an exciting time. I think if the pandemic didn't show us that when everybody else was out of work, our green collar, our conservation people were still in the mountains doing the work. And I think it shows how important conservation, how important these types of green collar careers are. And hopefully the momentum picks up after we get out of this type of, rest period, that, like I said, a bunch of aloha Aina warriors coming out to Malama Aina and to help all of our spaces to thrive. Yeah. Aloha. Aloha is the superpower. Mahalo.
Well, that concludes our formal question and answer period, our discussion, and so much mahalo to the people who have viewed this beautiful discussion, and so much thanks to our lovely speakers. At this time, I'm going to hand it off to Anna, who is going to give our not our final goodbye, but just the official wrap-up statement for this evening. And then after that, we're going to invite all of you to stay on and have a nice little less formal talk story session with our wonderful speakers, but if you have to leave, that's totally fine.
Thank you so much, Ifit. So sadly, we are coming up on the close of our session, and I want to send a huge mahalo to all of the people who have made today possible. Mahalo to our YA organizers and supporting nonprofit organizations. Mahalo to Auntie Nanea, Pauline, and Shannon for taking your time to share all of your ike about women's liberation and Aina. And most importantly, we would like to thank all of you for coming and taking time out of your busy schedules to come and learn from our panelists. And before we log out, Hayden has a few additional things to add.
So if you guys could all, so this is our slideshow right here. We have 2 QR codes, one to take you to our Instagram and one to take you to our website. I will also be sending you guys a follow-up email with our 2 links in it. I'll also be putting in the chat before we leave. But at this moment, I'm gonna ask Ella to stop sharing real quick. And if you're comfortable, if you could all turn on your guys' cameras and we wanna take a group picture, just acknowledging that you guys were all here today, supporting our project and being able to come and learn about all this amazing information. So if you're comfortable, please turn on your camera and then I'll give us a countdown and I'll take a screenshot. Okay. Gotta fix the hair, fix the glasses. Oh, why is not working? Okay. Ready? Kahi, luau, kolu, cheese. Everybody smile. Perfect, I got it. Mahalo nui. So as Anna said, mahalo to you all for coming. I know that it's coming up to, it's now 6:30 and it's our official close of our session. However, our speakers have graciously given up their time to stay on a little after. I know that some of you may have to leave due to prior obligations, but we invite you all to stay. If you guys have any questions you want to ask our speakers or anything you guys want to say, you guys feel free to type in the chat, unmute, whatever you guys are comfortable with. And on behalf of the planning team, myself, Ifit, Anna, and Ella, mahalo nui for coming and aloha. And participants, this is your chance. If you guys have any questions, feel free, unmute if you want to have a conversation. This is more informal, like Ifit said earlier. Just talk story and hear some questions out if you do have those questions or notes.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Oh, sorry.
Our youth, what do you think we can do as teachers to provide you guys with more meaningful place education experiences, I guess, in your classroom? Or do you feel that there is enough opportunity for you guys to connect to place and culture?
I can go first, and I'd also like to invite other youth who are in the meeting to go ahead and contribute, not just our hosts. It's easy to say that there isn't enough connection, like that just is what pops to the top of my mind, like immediately. I know there's not enough connection, but to like list out specifically what I want to see changed, that's that's a little harder. We all know that we want something, but we don't necessarily know how to define it, how to say, ooh, I want this and it would help me because this. But I think, and I'm thinking about English because English is my favorite subject, even though, I dislike the idea of cultural imperialism, which is the English subject in Hawaiian schools. But I'd love to analyze indigenous literature, to apply ideas of like because Hawaiian animism and what people would call paganism, it's such a great culture to study. Like if you're looking at personification and metaphors and poetry, it's just such a poetic language. It's such a, it's just beautiful. I'd love in English class to have that opportunity. I'd also love in science class to not just have, you know, the idea that you're supposed to remain objective. What we've been hearing this entire session is that it reminded me of a quote by this native of Turtle Island person, I forget his name, but he said that, you know, indigenous science, it's science. It's just that it factors in the heart. You know, it's at the human heart is at the very core of all of our experiments, of all of our thought processes. And yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah. And I'd love to pass it to Hayden if he is ready.
So my answer, pretty simple. Oh, kalamai. There's some dogs going off in the background right now. So pretty simple. Show that you have the Ike, not Ike, but show that you have the passion within you, right? It's so often that I go to English class and I go, like, unlike Ify, English is my worst subject for me. It's especially because of the teachers. Just show that you have that passion to want to drive students to do a Aina-based education, right? Not just, okay, today we will be reading from Shakespeare, right? Like I'm fine with reading from Shakespeare, just let's find that connection to drive it home to Hawaii and things like that, right? So keeping that inner passion with you alive and burning so that we can feed off of it. Anna or Ella, up to you guys.
Oh, I'm looking at Anna's face and it's kind of making me laugh. Okay, so, I had a speech in my head and I lost it. But I think, you know, learning from this session and the past session, there's a lot of interconnectedness. The past session we had Logan Shrumma come and talk about, she's like a young architect and her goal is to incorporate Hawaiian culture into like physical buildings. And I was like, that's cool, because you're taking something that's verbal and you're making it visual. And that transition is what I feel is super interconnected. But in terms of school, I really agree with Ifit in that I would love to see more integration in like different subjects, because it's not just Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture. There's also Hawaiian science. There's also Hawaiian like almost literature that you can study. And I mean, I'll be frank, I'm not exposed to that in my education. And I feel that, you know, you're losing a lot of knowledge, because high school is kind of like the fundamental parts of learning, and then you go out in college and you choose. So I feel like that'd be really amazing if we could have more exposure. How? I have no idea, like Ifit said, but it'd be great to see.
Thank you, Ella, for taking that bullet for me. Like I really agree with everything like Ella, Hayden, and Ifit said. And I feel like the thing that stood out was the thing Hayden mentioned about how, you know, he's fine with reading about Shakespeare and everything, but how does that, I guess, why does it matter, right? And so I feel like when it comes to that, I think just having representation, I think that is something that's really important, because in my English class too, we just had to choose like books for this book report, book project we're doing, and all of them were by white authors. There wasn't any kind of diversity. And I think when drawing from when we were talking about opening doors for youth earlier, I think that's where a lot of young people, you know, us, we're limited, because we're seeing all these things that aren't from here, I guess. And so, you know, I think pushing for more representation is really important. And I think I'm just rambling at this point, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Anna. And I also got a chat. I'm assuming it's from Liam. From a student perspective, the diversity in literature would facilitate connectedness more rather than the same old, same old. It is hard to connect to literature that seems so far away or irrelevant to us as Indigenous youth. And also, what Anna said about like the fact that all of the authors were white, you know, it resonated with me because it reminded me of something that my mom said. She is a she teaches a college class, and I'd like to pass it on to her because that's something that she noticed. If she wants to accept it, but I'd love to hear her opinion as a teacher. You know how she tries to work in, you know, Aloha Aina to her subject. Sorry, Mom. I think you're I'm not getting any sound. No sound, no sound. If you want to chat it,
Or just go walk over to eFeed and go on his
yes,
computer.
yes, come on.
Can I chime in while Mom figures it out real fast?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was a high school and middle school English teacher for 12 years here and not born and raised here. I taught 10th grade English for a decade, and 10th grade English curriculum is world literature. Yeah. I could teach anything. And it wasn't until I left the classroom and came to the work I do now, which is focused on place-based education and is on the Waianae Coast, that I reflected and realized that I didn't feel that I had the permission or the right to teach Hawaiian literature, local stories. I would teach about some culture. I mean, I taught Things Fall Apart about a culture in Africa that I didn't know anything about either, but no one in the room knew anything about it. So it was like a co-learning experience. And so just a different perspective on what you folks are saying, which I agree with and appreciate. I think it has to be prior to, you know, like my teacher school experience was here at UH Manoa, and it was never encouraged for me to be sure to include or to be exposed to or any of those things to make me even aware. And so as much as I loved English, and I mean in 4th grade I want to be an English teacher, that was place connection was not a part of my probably K to 12 experience, maybe in college. And so then coming here and the University of Manoa giving me my teacher credential and not pushing that or encouraging that or even informing me, I feel like I did a decade's worth of disservice to my youth in Eva Beach. And so I think even prior to, it's just a want for our students, which is totally understandable, and everything should be related, right, to like what you know. Shakespeare seems like so foreign or historic, that happened before. Everything should be related, right, in a sense. But if, you know, I'm not afraid of bringing in topics I'm not familiar with, but it was like a sense of like permission that I didn't have. And so that makes me think that it needs to be a part of a whole school. It needs to be a part of, I mean, at least a department, if not a school, if not a university, that's preparing teachers to come into these spaces. Especially, you know, we have some hard to place communities where teachers not from there are brought in, and it's no fault of their own that they don't know of stories to connect to your culture. I loved, Shannon, what you said earlier about you don't have to be culture-based to be place-based. I think it's a similar thing. You don't have to be culture-based to be place-based in literature. Place, right? It doesn't have to, I don't have to know the culture of it, but just like a boy growing up in the same community or of the same spaces. So yeah, just offering that. I appreciate your guys' awareness and just wonder if that's something that is bigger than just that teacher. Yeah, the support. Okay, I see Mom is in the background now, so I think she's ready to be heard.
Unmute.
Hayden, I almost lucked out there. I was able to duck out of that one, but I just try. I mean, I think like Kumu Bukasis and Kumu Sato and the other Kumu, my sis Kat and Katie, we all do our best to shine a light on things that are connected to this community specifically. And so in my class, I try to weave in as much literature, poetry. I bring in Antipuanani Burgess. One of the first assignments that I did when I was at Ma'o is I asked the students to write in their own words in Pidgin. Like I wanted a report, but I wanted it in Pidgin, and they were all like, "What?" And I think that many times people underestimate just the power of that language, and they think it's improper English, but it's learning how to code switch. And so I think it's just really helping us to recognize the power of who we are, the dualism that Kumu Bukasis shared. And so I try my best to communicate and convey that. And I work a lot with amazing people, and I learn from our Hamana, like what I'm doing wrong and what we can do better every day, so that we kind of push forward. So, but thanks for putting me on the spot. I'll pass it back over to our awesome hosts.
At this moment,
Uh,
anybody can unmute, talk, questions, comments, our speakers, our participants, our hosts, whatever you guys want. This is your time to speak up and share your mana'o, like how Tammy did. Mahalo for that. Share your personal mana'o, ask questions to any of us in the Zoom at this point. Just mahalo for all this Ike shared. I've learned so much today.
I kind of wanted to point or go to what Tammy was saying. You know, I think, yeah, there is a lot of teachers within our spaces that want to teach this type of, you know, from this type of perspective. And I think it's that uncomfortableness of incorporating something like that into your curriculum. And I think she brought up a good point of like, just we need more teacher programs to train even teachers who are coming in, you know, that so that we can feel confident, or that people can feel confident. You know, Katie and I, we went through a similar teacher program, and I'm so grateful for that program, because the push was for culture, place-based education to be in classrooms. And, you know, I think about how many teachers came out of that program prepared, and we were not all Hawaiian teachers, but we're just teachers who are interested in teaching from Hawaii. And I think that's something that we all need to start pushing, and even for students to advocate for, is that if this is the type of education we want to see, then, you know, like people like Tammy, what our rep up there, yeah, Amy, Representative Amy, you know, we have great advocates in Ledge right now who I think can help us to make these things happen if this is something that is important. And I think helping more teachers to feel confident that they can, like you know, like not, you know, I think Tammy, you know, what you did in your class was such a great, and to me as a Kanaka, anybody who's willing to teach about this place with aloha, you know, I think that's what it takes. If you are going to carry on this ike, these stories, and you love, you know, you carry it on with the aloha, with this idea that you're spreading it through aloha, I think that's the most important part, as far as you know, feeling that you have the permission. So for me, anybody who's willing to teach it, I give you the permission to teach it with aloha, to teach it, you know, and I think to teach it with confidence, because our students need it. Our students want it. You know, I think this panel just showed this diverse group that, you know, not all of them are Hawaiian, but just being able to connect to these types of opportunities. So I think that's our next push as a hui, is to push for these types of changes at the top, so that we see it trickle down into our spaces.
And just kind of a random ad. Sorry if I'm loud, but I've had the privilege of watching Kumu Bukasis and Kumu Pauline with students on different occasions. And one of the beautiful things is that it's not just providing them opportunities for culture and aina, it's allowing them to make their own meaning and not being the voice for them, but giving them space to find their own voice and to, you know, think about how things, even as disparate as like Shakespeare, how it connects to themselves as an individual, whether it's culturally or not. So I think that's something that I was really excited to listen to you folks talk, just because the perspective is always there of, you know, it's like this group student led, yeah, and allowing students to find their voice and make meaning from all kinds of different spaces. So.
Mahalo, Katie. Good to see you and the baby.
I'm thinking of this, aloha, another happy. And sorry about the noise too. It's like make rice time in our house right now. But just thinking from like, when I'm looking at an administrative lens too, I think our recruitment efforts are really important in this arena too. And we're talking about like permission and preparedness and, you know, having that comfort level, and the training is the willingness when we're doing our recruitment efforts, which is why it's really beautiful that we have efforts that are like grow your own teachers in our community right now. Because I think a lot of times in the past, historically, it's like, okay, if you want to come, we need teachers, come. And we're not really asking those hard questions about, well, if you do come, like, are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you willing to put yourself out there to seek your own information and ask permission? It's not going to, you know, be easy. And so I think like recruitment efforts, we need to step it up in that arena. And that's like, we could go on and on, but that's just one perspective.
And I like Tori Lynn's comment about, you know, we don't, as teachers, we don't have to have all the answers, right? It's kind of the old way, they say the sage on the stage, right? I'm talking, I'm lecturing, everybody listen to me, I got the answers, I'm the professor. And there's no way I could do that, because I definitely don't know the answers. So I like want to spark ideas, you know, get people to think about it and then find out, you know, or make your own project, ask questions, and then we learn together. That's the way it's got to work, I think, because then it's you're making the brains work, right? And also connecting it with the student passion. Not telling them what to do, but like put the pieces together, make this your project, write a paper on it, you know, find out the rest of us. I think I personally feel that's the way education works for me.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's thoughts on my thought. But that's interesting. Pauline and Shannon both know what I value in all of that. You know, I'm a co-learner. Let's figure it out together. And it wasn't until after, upon reflection, that I realized that it was like I didn't feel comfortable, perhaps. But I do know that I love learning. And so if the school or even my department head had valued that, I would have made it happen. I would have figured it out. I would have educated myself. I would have reached out to opportunities such as this, but it never was. And so I think coming back to the youth voices in this space, not just at the English teacher, but at the school, who is not informing that English or math or science or whoever to, you know, that's a value. And so we'll support you if you need, but hey, this is an expectation. Because I realize it now, and I often joke that like, if I could only go back to the classroom now, I'd be amazing, you know. But yeah, I encourage the youth in the room to voice that. That's something you need and want, and it needs to be valued by the school, department, anything. Because I know like Kumu Shannon values that, and it's not just because you're the Hawaiian Studies program, you know, and so I would imagine if you were like my admin, my department head, my team partner, I would get that from you, but that's just not, sadly, that's just not the norm in my experience.
I am so thankful for this conversation that has just snowballed into this beautiful, beautiful that question which snowballed into this beautiful, beautiful conversation. And I don't want to like cut off anyone who wanted to share. But there is one last question that we want to ask before we start to wrap up. And I think like if we answer it in the same way that we've answered this one, it would be good to start on it now. But totally, if anyone has anything else to share, I want to give them this time to do so.
Can I just kind of add on to what Tammy was saying? I think we get so stuck with the labels, that this is what's going to happen in your English class. This is what's going to happen in your science class. And I think that's why I love the community as my classroom, is because I think, everything happens that like you guys have said, that everything is so connected. Yeah, interdisciplinary teaching happens in the community because you need to pull all of those skills in order to be successful in these spaces. And I think that's where, our models of schooling needs to be, is that we drop the walls and say, this is only going to happen in Hawaiian studies. No, it's happening in marine science, it's happening in ag, it's happening in English classes, and I think we get so fixated on labeling things that if we just open the doors to the community and let the community be the classroom, then we see how the students are more, we're pushing more toward that skilled base versus I got to be versed in being able to memorize what all the different stories of Shakespeare. But like Katie said, can you take Shakespeare and look at, what are the skills that this story or the person in this story needed in order to be able to survive, and how can I apply that now to when I go out in my community? And I think, if school can be the community, I think Hawaii will be ahead of the game. So hopefully we can move towards, that type of model as we continue to grow as I think teachers and students and people of this place. Sorry, go ahead. Ifit, what was your closing question?
Okay, this one is going to be a fun one, and I think that it fits to close us out, and it's open to all of our speakers, but with so much mana'o that was shared by our audience members, I want to leave it open to them too. So when you speakers were in high school, did you see yourself doing what you're doing right now? Did you see yourself doing what you're doing today? I'd like to invite Nanea because those experiences and memories should be nice and fresh.
First answer is no. Definitely not. It was totally a buildup of experiences and just like meeting people and reconnecting to people. So definitely a no, but I'm glad that I'm able to be where I am. And yeah, I've learned, like, I feel like that more than the average person or person my age, I've definitely learned a lot more because of the opportunities that I was given and the opportunities that I pushed myself to get. So yeah, no.
It looks like Kumu Bukasis had to step away. Thank you so much, Nanea. Oh, she's back, but I'm gonna leave it open to either you, Kumu Sato or Kumu Bukasis.
Maybe I'll go next since I just graduated from high school not too long ago. But Nanea, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because as your Kumu, and I'm sure, I'm not too sure if anybody else had her as a student, I wouldn't expect anything less from Nanea, just knowing the type of student she was, and I think this journey fits you. I always ask my students, what kind of a student do you think I was? And it's interesting, they all say, oh, Kumu, I don't think you were a great student. And I tell them, you're right. I was the student that almost didn't graduate from high school. I was the student that, would rather be out of school than in the classroom. And I think a lot of it had to do because I didn't like the type of education I was getting. And it wasn't until I went to UH and I got into the Hawaiian Studies program that I understood why I needed to go on this journey that I am. And, I gotta give credit to my Olelo Hawaii Kumu, Noel Warner, who he didn't give us a choice after we graduated with our bachelor's. He said, you guys are going to this master's program, you guys are going to become teachers because we need you guys to become teachers. And I think that's where that Koleana came. It was from connecting with these great teachers who were able to connect with me and be able to, you know, help me understand what my purpose is and who I am as a person. And, you know, I mahalo them. But yeah, high school, I would have been like, maybe a teacher? No way, it cannot be. I don't think I'll ever do that. But I love being a teacher. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So, but it's only because we have great students. And I also want to mahalo the community of Wai'anae. The community of Wai'anae has made me the kumu I am today. And if it wasn't for the community and the community at school with, you know, Kumu Hapi, Kumu Akien, Kumu Auntie Candy, and all of these people, you know, I wanted to shout out those Wahine who have, you know, really created a space for us to come in and do the work that we do. And I appreciate the community for everything that they have done to grow me into who I am today. So I love Wai'anae. Wai'anae is my second home, and, you know, I will give everything I can for Wai'anae as long as I am in this space. Mahalo.
I think I would have wanted to be your friend though in high school if we were in the same school at the same time.
Only if you were willing to ride in a brown van that had a bra on the front to make sure the bugs weren't all stuck to the front. We called it the golden bullet. So only if you were willing to ride in a van.
Wow, so fun. I was kind of a nerdy student. So quick answer, and I'm getting in the dark now, so I'm gonna get closer. I knew I was gonna be in this kind of field, but definitely not thinking I'm gonna like run a nonprofit organization. It's like, oh my goodness. But it's an evolutionary thing, you know. I've worked with nonprofits almost all my life, and one thing leads to another, and it's not like I was goal oriented. It's just, this is what happened. OY led me to this place. And I think the one thing that I might recommend to young people is just give things a chance, you know. It might not sound like the best thing, but give it a chance. It might change your life. I think that I've been lucky. I've had a lot of chances. I took a lot of chances, and it's a great ride, you know, if you make it.
Wow, that was such an amazing way to wrap up our session this evening. Unfortunately, we are at 7 o'clock, and I know some of our speakers as well as some of our hosts, the students, have some other kuleana to attend to. So at this time, I'm gonna have to officially end our Zoom. I wanna mahalo our speakers, my host, co-host, mahalo for that. And mahalo to you participants for even staying on the extra half an hour just to engage in this amazing discussion that we had. So at this time, I would like to mahalo the participants and say ahui ho to you all. To my speakers and the co-hosts, I would like to ask you guys to stay on real quick just for a small thing I have to say to you guys. But other than that, mahalo nui to everybody for coming tonight.
Mahalo
And
nui.
aloha.
My mom is asking if we can get one more picture with my sister in it.
No. That's what you said.
Isa.
No.
Okay. Well, we got one person who dropped out, but is that cool? Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, we can do it right now. Ready?
3, 2, 1, smile. There we go. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Okay,
Mahalo
mahalo,
nui.
you guys. You're
Bye.
amazing.
It's great. You guys did a
Bye.
great
Thank
job.
you so much.
Yeah. Good job.
Take care.
Bye, friends.
Ahui ho.
Yeah, we're meeting very brief. Should be quick.
Oh my God, we're done.
We're amazing.
Yeah, for a little. Is that what you said?
Yes, please. I'm in.